So nice guys tend to finish last, especially in the dating field. In this video I'm going to talk about 10 reasons why that happens, and in particular 10 reasons that aren't often spoken about and sabotage us from behind the curtain of our subconscious. So throughout my teen and early 20 years, women and relationships and dating was the source of greatest pain in my life. I didn't know at the time I had something called nice guy syndrome that was making this area of my life incredibly difficult. All I knew is I seemed to be doing a lot worse than everybody else I knew, and seemed to have this kind of weird bad luck that just kept plaguing me throughout all those years. So in this video, I'm going to share 10 of the reasons I've identified why I struggled, that are also reasons my clients struggle and other nice guys that I've seen. I'm going to share some of my personal experiences that show the evidence for these problems. Trying to keep her happy. This is a classic one. So in my first long-term relationship, I dedicated myself to this goal. Everything I did was to try and avoid conflict, try to make her feel good, try to prevent her from feeling anything bad, and basically I just spent 24/7 thinking about that and acting on that. I figured if she always feels good around me, that means I'm a good partner. That was the kind of conditioning I had. That if someone feels bad around me, that's my fault and means I'm a bad person. And so the opposite is true. If they always feel happy and good, that means I'm on point. In particular, when it comes to being a boyfriend or a husband, the sign that you're a good boyfriend or a husband is that your partner is happy all the time. I genuinely believe that, even though now I hear how ridiculous that sounds. So of course, you guessed it, she left me. After about 2.5 years, she left me for another guy who I'm sure was not as nice and not as provoking of happiness as I was, yet was more interesting. What I didn't understand is that attraction and connection requires the full range of emotions, the entire scope of human experience, including sadness and confusion and anger and depression and all those things I prevented. When you keep someone in a monotone of just calm, happy, peaceful, they get bored, they get agitated, they start to feel like they're not really living, and that's no good for a relationship. On top of that, in order to keep someone in that narrow range of emotion, you can't be real. You can't be honest, because honesty will always provoke a range of emotions. So I had to be incredibly fake, which means she wasn't really in a relationship with me. She was in a relationship with this nice persona that I had created, a very limited version of me, and some of it outright deception. It wasn't me at all. So of course that relationship was doomed. Avoiding rejection. I always assumed back in those days that if a girl said no to me, that was somehow accurate feedback on my worth. Like if I was a good guy, an attractive guy, then girls would say yes. So if anybody said no, that was confirmation that I wasn't. The funny thing was, it didn't actually happen that often because I would avoid allowing that to happen. All it took was a couple of rejections early in my teenage years for me to go, fuck that, I never want to experience that again. And what I later identified is that myself and other nice guys, we don't want to confirm that nobody loves us. We don't want to see evidence that we can't unsee. Some sort of permanent truth coming through like, yes, we are as unworthy as we suspected. So we avoid rejection in order to never have to find that out, never have to get that, keep the hope alive. By avoiding rejection, we get to tell ourselves maybe someone likes us. If we go out and get a lot of rejections, especially a lot in a row with no sign that anything's getting better, we start to suspect, oh God, it's true, nobody does love us. Problem was, of course, I wanted to be with women, so I was in this weird position where I'd be around women all the time, constantly in proximity to them, friends and strangers alike, but not doing anything that they might be able to reject. So it was actually more painful than avoiding them altogether because I was constantly near them. I could smell their perfume and hear their laughter and see them smile, and I just want to be with them, but I would not allow myself to do anything that might cross the platonic line, anything that somebody could say no to. So it was like being in a glass bubble. I could only watch. Now, of course, that strategy worked. I didn't get rejected because there was nothing I did that you could say no to. I never asked anything from you that you weren't willing to give. Which means, of course, I spent 4 years without sex or a girlfriend or anything in my early 20s, and that was a brutal time to be involuntarily celibate, as they call it. And the tragedy of it is that I got the same result as somebody who is rejected all the time. Because I said no to myself, It was like they were saying no to me. I went for years and years without a yes. And actually, I would have had better results if I'd asked out everybody I ever met. Self-sabotaging due to fear of success. See, a nice guy will often tell himself he's afraid of rejection, afraid of failure, and that's what his real problem is. Nah, he's afraid of a yes. Certain nice guys, I'm not talking about the ones who are in serial relationships, because they're not the ones who struggle in dating. But there are others that feel like they're trying to get with women all the time. You know, I used to go out to the weekend, every weekend I'd go out to the clubs, I'd get drunk, and I'd put myself near women and go, come on, something happened. I'd be texting women all the time and so on, and nothing was happening. It felt like I was trying really hard to make something happen. I could almost pat myself on the back like I've done my best, you know, what more can a guy do? What I didn't realize is that if you looked at my behavior carefully, with the kind of insight that I have now, you could see that I was clearly preventing and sabotaging any chances of success. You know, if a girl showed interest in me, suddenly I'd lose interest in her. You know, I'd often get too drunk to speak properly or to drive to an address where someone might be. I constantly made it difficult for myself to actually cross the line with girls. I used to love especially being in the flirty banter phase with a girl, but I'd just stay there, just plateau there, and I'd become her funny friend and get friend zoned because I'd never take it anywhere sexual or romantic. I'd just have that like validation all the time, but keeping them at arm's distance too. Like, yeah, validate me, but don't get close and hurt my feelings. And I was really attracted to girls who were in some way unavailable. So either they already had a partner or they were in some way mentally or emotionally dysfunctional that would prevent any kind of deep connection happening. I found those girls incredibly physically attractive. So my brain kind of did the psychosomatic thing where it made me like girls the way they looked, depending on their personality. And I'm sure this is common for everyone. But girls who are actually like available, healthy, looking for a relationship, I'm like, ugh, look at the mole on her neck. You know, I'd just pick out these little details and lose interest in them immediately. Even if it was a girl I was crushing on. You know, a girl I'm really interested in, and then she breaks up with her boyfriend. I'm like, yeah, well, actually, she's a bit this and that. And suddenly I'd lose interest. And the big picture was I was actually trying to keep women away while telling myself a story that I'm trying to get a girlfriend. Fuck, I even got erectile dysfunction, but only with girls that I actually cared about. Only with girls that I wanted something to happen with. It's like my body did everything it could to screw this up for me. Many nice guys don't realize they're lying to themselves about their dating goals. They really think they're trying hard, and they are trying hard to ruin things. This is called an avoidant attachment style, and it's worth Googling. It's this tendency you have due to trauma in childhood about people who got too close and hurt you. You know, I lost a lot of best friends when I was really young, and I started to realize like having best friends is a very painful experience, so I better keep people at a distance. There was many other experiences that did this to me. But an avoidant attachment style is you want people close but not too close. You want them to like you, but you don't want them able to hurt your feelings, which creates a kind of limit to how close they're able to get. It must be risk-free. And you'll often pursue people when they're playing hard to get because that's very safe. But as soon as they're easy to get, you're like, oh, God, you're suffocating me, you know? And I was like that all the time. Green light syndrome. Myself and many nice guys do this. I used to pride myself on being easygoing. Those words in particular. Laid back. I was proud of this. I got complimented on it all the time. People would often, you know, validate how I was the coolest, calmest, most unaffected person, how I was just chill with everything, and people loved me for that. Well, no, they didn't love me. They liked me for that. Because you can't love easygoing. You can just really enjoy being around it, but you can't love a person who doesn't have any edges. You can't love a person who doesn't have any form or shape, has no preferences. That person doesn't exist. They're just a gas that fills the space. And that I was like that. It's often called the chameleon effect. I'd just be whatever it is you need me to be so that you feel comfortable and at peace and happy and having a laugh. Even if that meant completely compromising who the fuck I am. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for anybody. I'll do it for a fucking stranger. I spent most of my life being like that and being complimented for being like that. So I thought I was on track. What I found out later is this is a thing I now call green light syndrome. I couldn't do anything authentic unless I was sure that it would not get a bad reaction. And it is so hard to be sure of something like that. I needed a green light. I needed encouragement. I needed permission. I needed someone else to initiate and lead. I couldn't take any risks with expressing myself in some way that might cause upset. And you can just imagine how limiting this is when you're trying to date people and get to know them and build attraction and connection with them. If you can't show them any of your edges, what is there to be attracted to? The fear of taking risks is the silent killer in a nice guy's life. While he tells himself this lovely story about how he's easygoing and unaffected and, doesn't cause any fuss, what he really is a fucking coward. He's not easygoing, he's a pussy. He actually has a lot of things he would prefer. He is bothered by things, he just doesn't show it, and that is not the same as easygoing. He's limited by what's already approved of by others, and that is extremely limiting. Sexual shame. I grew up in the macho West Auckland culture of New Zealand. All the guys around me talked about sex constantly. It was a badge of honor to get laid by anyone, anytime, especially hot girls though. And it was all about quantity over quality. It was just how quickly did you get it done, so on. And if I ever went on a date with a girl, even if I'm 13 years old, if I went on a date with a girl, they're like, did you finger her yet? It was just this constant pressure from the earliest age to have as much sex as possible with as pretty girls as possible. It was so strong that I was actually compelled to lie about losing my virginity when I was like 15 or something, because I was so far behind my friends who, according to them, had all lost it earlier, 13 or 14 years old. I was a late bloomer to have not had sex by 15, which in some parts, there'll be people watching this thinking that's ridiculous. But where I was from, we were sexualized very, very early in that macho way, like you show that you're a man by getting laid, that you can seduce women and that they want the D. So when I got my first proper girlfriend, I of course had zero sexual experience, though according to the stories I told, that wasn't the case. And much to my horror, when the first time I went to do it, I got erectile dysfunction. I'm 15 and having erectile dysfunction. I couldn't have seen that coming in a million years. And this began a 10-year battle with ED that I eventually conquered, but there was just so much pressure to have sex and to be good at it, and everybody knew everybody, so I knew that anything I did sexually would be talked about because everybody talked about it to me. So I knew this would just be broadcast out to the grapevine, from the size of my penis to how long I lasted, everything, and it would all be judged, and it would be judged cruelly. And I was terrified of that judgment, to the point where I'd actually perform so badly that I did the thing that would be judged. And even when I eventually overcame this and became, shall we say, successful in bed, I was obsessed with being excellent at it. I wanted them to brag to their friends about how good it was, which meant actually in the bedroom I couldn't lose myself in it. I was just on performance mode. It was like a chore to me. I wanted to show off. I wanted to, I was hypersensitive to what they liked and didn't like and adjusted to that and didn't do anything for my own benefit. And that actually wasn't as good as sex could be for them either. But it was just all about this seriousness, this stress, and this pressure. So nice guys take sex way too seriously, to the point where they'll actually sabotage their dating experiences due to sexual avoidance, not wanting to end up in the bedroom and have to go through all that shit, even though they tell themselves something else. Allowing the friend zone to develop. My specialty. I have been in so many fucking friend zones. Okay. In my early 20s, I just went from one to the other. I'd have this female friend. I would be spending 4 or 5 nights a week at her house. I'd be on the phone with her for hours at a time. I became their best friend. I knew everything about them. And the entire time I was just like, come on, get your knickers off. I didn't say that. I just felt that. I was desperately attracted to them. And when I look back now, I realize it wasn't so much that them as a person was attractive. I just desperately needed someone, and I was like projecting onto whoever would like me at least a little bit. But I just couldn't pull the trigger, I couldn't say I like you. I couldn't say I want us to be girlfriend and boyfriend. Well, by the time I did, it was way too late. And that was rare. Usually the way it would end is she'd start talking to me after many months of us both being single and hanging out all the time. She'd start talking to me about how she had this guy who was interested in her and how to make a move with the guy and stuff. And I'd have this hope that she's like using code and talking about me. And then I'd figure out, oh no, she's actually talking about another dude. Boom, I'd just ghost her right away. Just punish her for liking another guy. Leave her completely. devastated that, have my hope come crashing down like that. My inability to risk the friendship by asking or stating what I really wanted was just guaranteed that I could never have anything with them. And I've met up with a lot of these girls later in my life, and in my new honesty phase, going like, by the way, I got to tell you what was really going on there, and I've got to confess. And they're like, yeah, we knew. Or they'd say something like, you actually had a chance with me, but you were just so platonic, I figured you just wanted to be friends, or that I wasn't attractive. So something could have happened if I'd just taken a risk. Instead, I actually used this as a secret way to prevent me from being with any other girls. These were essentially girls I made unavailable because I made myself unavailable. And yet I told myself, hey, I'm spending 4 nights a week. I'm really working at this. Nah, I'm spending time with them to stay away from everyone else. I was loyal to girls that I wasn't in a relationship with. That's an avoidant tactic. Showing a limited emotional range. I used to wonder if I was a psychopath when I was in my 20s. I was so numb. Aside from being kind of mildly anxious or bored, I was mostly numb or like pissing myself laughing, having a laugh. But that was it. I just had no range. Occasionally I'd get these rage attacks that scared me, but they were quite occasional. Most of the time I was just flatlining. I felt like nothing inside. And when I read about psychopathy, I'm like, oh shit, I think I'm one of them. Until I read that they can't experience anxiety, I'm like, oh no, I have that all the time, so I must be something else. So whenever I did date a girl, I was this one-trick pony. Agreeable, easygoing, calm, sarcastic, and witty, but just nothing. And that might be attractive the first night you meet someone or in the first week. It's like, oh, he's so nice to be with. But after a couple, or 3 weeks exactly, that gets dull. And they get over that real quick. There's nothing that captivates them. There's nothing that gives them anything real. Like you have no personality. There's nothing for them to connect with. So you lose them. Any guy who understands women will shake his head as he hears this, thinking like, that is not what a woman wants. She does not want you to be this calm, easygoing thing all the time. Only nice guys think that's true. Guys who are good with women know that they need a range of emotions. They need to have a range of experience in order to stay attracted to you. I lacked passion, I lacked balls, I lacked mystery, surprise. I mean, I could make them laugh, I could comfort them during their struggles, but that's about it. I was basically a comedian with a sideline job as a therapist. That's it. Very, very much one-sided. And certainly not sexy. And after the initial attraction wore off, they would realize that and they would leave me. And I had this string of short-term relationships that lasted 21 days to the day, one after another. It was like some curse that I had. 3 weekends I'd have with somebody. And then, I'd get a delayed text back saying, I don't think we should see each other anymore. And I just couldn't figure it out until I stopped doing this. And then relationships went a lot better for me. Avoiding conflict and confrontation. I once walked out on a girlfriend thinking it was over because we'd had a fight. That's how sure I was that conflict was bad. I was baffled that she actually wanted to still consider herself as my girlfriend. That didn't make any sense to me at all. I'd seen other couples arguing and so on. I knew that this happened in relationships, but I figured that it was always a failure. It meant that you weren't a good boyfriend. It meant that things were terrible. And it was also just very uncomfortable for me to be around it. So as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, it must be over. I'm a loser. It never occurred to me like, hey, people are allowed to disagree and still love each other. Without confrontation, you cannot connect deeply. It's one of the main truths that I've discovered about social dynamics is connection is built on disagreement, not agreement. Agreement is what creates comfort and enjoyment of each other's company. It does not create depth. Agreement is enjoying the level you're at. A confrontation is where you find a deeper level to be at. Right? Every time you clash and resolve it in a healthy way, you come out knowing each other better, feeling safer with each other, respecting each other more. It's a depth finder, you might say. And because I was never doing that, I just kept superficial with everybody, and that just never lasts, and it's not attractive. Being attracted to bad fits and unavailable women. I know I've already touched on this, but I'm telling you, man, I'd be in a crowded nightclub or whatever, a social event, a party, and somehow, like I was an X-Men with a superpower, I could pick out the psychologically disordered single mother who's left her kids with grandma so that she can come party on a Wednesday night, who loves taking drugs and is impossible to have a relationship with, I'd pick her out because I'd be attracted to her. It was one after the other. It was weird. Like, I had this weird kind of attraction. My friends would joke about it, like I was always into a certain type of girl that, was pretty, but nobody else was really into that type. And what I didn't realize is I was attracted to disordered, unavailable women. I was attracted to a woman that I couldn't hope to have a good long-term relationship with. As a sidebar, I'm not saying that single mothers are unavailable and it's not good to have a relationship with them. I'm saying the ones I was interested in were. I pride myself on being attracted to exciting women, which is like a code word I use for women with severe emotional and attachment issues who are probably quite mentally ill but still socially functional, and who it was just not possible to get in deep with. So I couldn't get my feelings hurt by these girls because I couldn't connect with them even if I wanted to. Confident, healthy women didn't ping up on my radar, and that might be largely because the circles I was hanging out in, the situations I was going to, didn't have an abundance of healthy, confident women. I found that out later, like when I started doing salsa dancing. I'm like, whoa, girls here are way different to girls I'm used to. I didn't realize that healthy, confident women don't go taking drugs at nightclubs at 3 in the morning, right? And they don't go to West Auckland parties where everyone's getting drunk and damaging the walls. Like, healthy, confident women stay away from stuff like that. And that was the only stuff I was going to. My pride, especially in my later 20s, was to sleep with a girl who had a boyfriend or a husband. I used to pride myself on that. I used to wear that as a badge of honor, even though I knew it was ethically fucked. What I didn't realize is it's the best kind of arrangement for someone who can't get over their avoidant attachment is you can have sex and connection with someone, but they're never yours, and they always go back to the guy. And I used to never put any resistance up when they're like, I'm going back to my boyfriend. I'm like, all right, see you later. Because I get to keep them at that arm's distance. It was the perfect arrangement for someone who's psychologically fucked up. Because the dark truth is, I suffered a crippling fear of intimacy and commitment. The idea of letting someone getting in and like staying with them and building an attachment that would hurt if it ended, I was absolutely a coward about that, as most nice guys are, at least the ones who aren't good at dating. And last but certainly not least, actually foremost, refusal to take responsibility for my failures in dating. My suffering could have ended when I was a teenager, theoretically speaking, yet it wasn't until about 25, 26, 27 that I really got my shit together. Why is that? Because despite blaming myself and going on and on about my own failures in dating, I still saw it like it was bad luck. I talked about it like it was bad luck. My friends validated that I seemed to be unlucky. And because, if you listen through to the rest of the reasons I gave in this video, this stuff doesn't look obvious. It looks like you're trying really hard to do well with women. Nobody can see the puppet master behind the scene ensuring that that can't happen, doing all these little bits and tricks and everything that don't look like anything on their own, but sabotage the whole shit, right? And I just refuse to go, I'm doing this. Despite the evidence, I could look in the mirror and go, okay, I'm not the ugliest guy in the world. I'm not fucking Brad Pitt, but there should be a range of women who still find me attractive. And I'm sort of fun to be around. I can talk and everything. I'm not like this weirdly dysfunctional, undateable freak. So why am I having such dramatically worse experience in this area than my friends? Some of whom I'm like, that guy's objectively worse than me as a person. Like, how is he doing fine in relationships and I'm not, And I refuse to accept that I'm the common denominator, that my behavior is the decider here, and I'd overlook certain things. There were times where I knew a girl was interested in me, and times where I had a blatant invitation from a girl or something, and I just somehow made that go away. There was this one night in particular, I was really pushing myself. I'm like, you make something happen. And I got actually kind of quite assertive and confident with a girl. And I took her upstairs at this party and we were starting to get, busy in the bedroom. And people kept coming and interrupting. It was like a joke because everyone's drunk and they're coming and like ruining it for me. Some part of me, I now know, knew that was going to happen. I knew what my friends were like. I knew what would happen if they saw me go upstairs with a girl. They were assholes, really, weren't they? Sabotaging a guy who hasn't been laid in 5 years. Absolute pricks. But I knew they were like that, and I somehow let it be known, I let them see, so that they would come and interfere with it. And it was with a girl that I knew I had no future with anyway. Like, when I look at it clearly, I'm like, man, I'm not trying to find a girlfriend and find love. I'm trying to stop that from happening. And yet, At the time, I refused to admit that. I said, "Oh, I can't believe you guys ruined this for me." Like it's them. Like I'm not the one who set this up. I'd become so attached to being the nice guy who finishes last. I've become so attached to that identity and that story that I refused to give that up, even if it meant to become the guy who finds an amazing woman and has a good life. Like I'd rather be the loser. And this is one of the weirdest things about human psychology is we get attached to an identity even though it sucks, despite the fact that another identity is available. Nice guys usually come to me for coaching when they've been through hell already. They've just suffered. They're either sort of, 40-year-old virgin type dudes, or they're in their 40s getting divorced, 30s getting divorced, and they finally realize, like, fuck, there's something wrong, and it's always something around me. I'm doing this. And it breaks my heart kind of knowing, man, if they just got onto this earlier. If you ever have a string of bad experiences, you go, wait, it's me, definitely. Even if it looks like luck, even if it looks like it's other people, it must be me because there's a pattern. And I'm the only thing that's the common denominator in that pattern. I'm doing this on purpose, even if I don't know it, even if I lie to myself about it. I mean, when you look at all the points I've talked about in this video, you would be forgiven for wondering, why has this guy had any success with women in his life? Like, that's a foolproof plan to prevent women coming into your life. But I had to change, didn't I? Have you had enough of sabotaging yourself? Because here comes the pitch. You can do all this on your own, right? You can go out and read books and do courses and try and, succeed in dating and take what I've talked about in this video and try to undo that damage. And you can succeed. I did it all on my own. It took like almost 7 years or something to make any real changes, despite struggling against all the stuff I've talked about in this video. So if you'd rather it only takes a few months, then maybe it's time to get in touch with me. When you work with someone like myself, I will accelerate your progress and help you avoid all the unnecessary trial and error that I had to go through to figure this shit out. Right? I will dig into your psychology and help you figure out all the tricks and tactics and self-sabotage that you're doing that gets in the way of a life that will just come to you if you can just be authentic and confident. There's nothing actually wrong with you. It's your behavior that prevents things from happening. And you don't have to behave that way. And that behavior is not genuine. It's not authentic to your core values and who you really are. If you work with me, we'll help you overcome your fear of rejection. We'll help you overcome your fear of commitment and intimacy. You'll stop seeing yourself as not good enough, as well as developing practical social skills and communication skills that give you the best possible chance and allow you to find the people who are right for you. So your dating experience will turn into this whole new thing that, you enjoy and you look forward to, rather than this chore that you have to go through because you have this desperate need that must be filled and society standards that must be met. And you don't have to take my word for it. If you want a free trial session with no obligation or sales pitch or anything, you can come and have one, see what it's like to work with me, and you'll be able to judge for yourself if it's worth it. If you're interested in that, let me know. Email me, dan@brojo.org. I'll send you an application form, and we might end up talking about this and solving it for you. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you guys next time.